The moment the final note faded, the theater didn't breathe. You could hear a pin drop, and somewhere in that sacred silence, a grown man who had judged thousands of singers pressed his hand to his face and broke down. The camera caught the tears just as the crowd rose to its feet, and if you're watching this right now, stay with me, because by the time this story ends, you'll understand why this single performance changed lives. And if stories like this move your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so more moments like this can reach the world. Just minutes earlier, the stage lights had felt too big for a small boy standing alone at center stage. He was Filipino, barely tall enough to reach the microphone comfortably, his hands trembling as he adjusted it. His name echoed softly when the host introduced him, and he smiled the kind of smile kids give when they're trying to be brave for everyone watching back home. In the audience, people whispered another kid with a dream, another hopeful voice, but no one could guess what was about to happen. Backstage, tucked into his pocket, was a crumpled photo of his family. His mother had kissed his forehead before he walked out, reminding him why he was there. Not for fame. Not for judges. He was there for his father who worked overseas and watched every performance through a cracked phone screen. He was there for his grandmother who taught him to sing before he could read, who said music was prayer when words weren't enough. He was there for a country that taught him to stand tall, even when the world feels larger than you. When the judges asked what he would sing, he swallowed hard. Lupang Hinirang, he said quietly, the Philippine national anthem. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some smiled, others looked confused. Singing an anthem on a global stage was a risk. There were no flashy runs, no easy applause cues. Just pure meaning. Just truth. The music began softly, almost like a heartbeat. The boy closed his eyes, and in that instant, he wasn't on a giant stage anymore. He was back home, standing in a small classroom during flag ceremony, singing with classmates while the morning sun crept through open windows. His voice came out gentle but steady, carrying the weight of history and hope. Every word landed with care, as if he was holding something precious and fragile. As the song rose, so did his courage. His voice grew stronger, fuller, filling the hall in a way that made people sit up straight. Audience members who didn't understand the language felt something shift inside them anyway. It wasn't about translation anymore. It was about feeling. About belonging. About loving a place so deeply that singing its name feels like a promise. Halfway through, the camera cut to the judges. One leaned forward, eyes locked on the stage. Another pressed lips together, nodding slowly. And then there was Simon, usually stone-faced, usually unmoved, staring as if he'd forgotten he was supposed to judge. The boy reached the anthem's most powerful line, and his voice cracked, not from weakness, but from emotion. He didn't stop. He pushed through, and that tiny crack made everything real. In the audience, a woman wiped her eyes. A man stood without realizing it. Somewhere, millions of miles away, a Filipino family crowded around a screen, hands clasped, hearts pounding in time with the music. This wasn't just a performance anymore. It was a bridge between homes, between cultures, between people who had never met but suddenly felt connected. When the final note soared and settled into silence, the boy opened his eyes. For a split second, fear crossed his face. Had he done enough? Then the applause hit him like a wave. Loud. Endless. People shouting his name, cheering not just for how he sang, but for what he stood for. The judges stood. Simon stood last, wiping his eyes, shaking his head in disbelief. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than anyone expected. He talked about courage. About how music can remind us of who we are and where we come from. About how a child, standing alone, had just taught the entire room something important. The boy listened, tears rolling down his cheeks now, no longer trying to be brave, just being human. Backstage after the performance, he hugged his mother so tightly it looked like he might disappear into her arms. She whispered that his father had called, crying, proud beyond words. In that moment, winning didn't matter. Trophies didn't matter. What mattered was that a song had carried their love across oceans. As the episode aired, messages poured in from around the world. People said they felt proud of a country they'd never visited. Others said they remembered their own childhood dreams, the ones they'd packed away when life got hard. Teachers shared the clip with students. Parents showed it to their kids. And every time that anthem played, it reminded someone that their voice mattered too. That's the power of moments like this. They don't just entertain us, they wake us up. They remind us that talent isn't always loud, that bravery can look small, and that sometimes the purest performances come from hearts that have learned to hope despite everything. So if this story touched you, if it made you feel something real, take a second to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps these stories travel further, reaching the people who need them most. Because somewhere right now, another kid is holding on to a dream, waiting for the courage to sing, and when they do, the world should be listening. Before you scroll away, before you tap skip, let me ask you something. When was the last time a child's voice made the strongest judge in the world cry? What you're about to hear isn't just a performance, it's a moment that shook a global stage and reminded millions what courage really sounds like. And if stories like this inspire you, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel, because moments like these deserve to be remembered. The boy stood alone under blinding lights that felt larger than life. His feet barely touched the floor as he adjusted the microphone, breathing slowly the way his mother taught him when fear crept in. He was from the Philippines, far from home, far from everything familiar, yet carrying his entire world inside his chest. The judges smiled politely, the audience waited patiently, but no one was prepared for what was coming. Back home, mornings began with simple routines. A small house, a shared breakfast, a radio playing softly in the background. His grandmother's voice was always the loudest when the national anthem played. She believed singing it wasn't just tradition, it was respect, memory, and love stitched together. She was the first person who noticed his voice, the first to say, "One day, the world will hear you." Life wasn't easy. His father worked overseas, missing birthdays and school events, sacrificing presents so dreams could survive. Video calls replaced hugs. Songs replaced words that were too heavy to say. Whenever the boy missed him, he sang. Singing became his safe place, his way of holding his family together across oceans. On the AGT stage, when asked what he would perform, the boy didn't hesitate. "Lupang Hinirang," he said. The room shifted. Choosing a national anthem on a competition stage wasn't safe. It wasn't trendy. It wasn't meant to impress, it was meant to mean something. The first note floated gently, fragile but honest. His voice carried respect, not fear. Each lyric felt carefully placed, like he was protecting something sacred. People who didn't understand the words leaned forward, because emotion doesn't need translation. You could feel pride, longing, and love in every breath he took. As the song grew stronger, so did he. His posture straightened. His voice filled the theater, rich and unwavering. It wasn't perfect, and that's why it was powerful. A slight tremble here, a crack there, proof that this wasn't rehearsed emotion. This was real. Cameras panned to the judges. Smiles faded into silence. One judge covered her mouth. Another nodded slowly, eyes shining. Then there was Simon Cowell, known for being tough, nearly impossible to move. His expression changed. His eyes welled up. He looked away, wiping tears he didn't expect to fall. The final note rang out, echoing longer than the applause that followed. For a split second, the boy stood frozen, unsure. Then the audience rose as one. Cheers thundered through the room. Flags waved. People cried openly. Somewhere in the Philippines, families gathered around screens, tears streaming, hearts bursting with pride. Simon stood up last. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, emotional. He didn't talk about technique. He didn't talk about competition. He talked about how that song reminded him of home, of identity, of why music exists in the first place. He thanked the boy not as a judge, but as a human being. Backstage, the boy collapsed into his mother's arms, shaking with emotion. His phone buzzed endlessly, messages from teachers, neighbors, strangers, and finally, a call from his father. No words were needed. Tears said everything. That night, the performance spread across the world. Comments poured in from every country. I don't speak the language, but I felt it. This reminded me of my roots. This healed something in me. A child had done what speeches and arguments never could. He united people through truth. This wasn't just a singing audition. It was a reminder that bravery doesn't need age, that pride doesn't need permission, and that even the smallest voice can leave the biggest impact when it sings from the heart. So if this story moved you, if it made you feel proud, hopeful, or inspired, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps these powerful moments reach further, because somewhere out there, another child is holding onto a dream, waiting for the courage to sing. And before you decide to skip, pause for just a moment, because what happened on that stage was not planned, not scripted, and not meant to make history, yet it did. A single child, a single song, and a silence so heavy it forced even the toughest judge to break down. If stories that touch the soul matter to you, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel, because moments like this don't come often, and when they do, they deserve to be shared. The boy walked onto the stage with slow, careful steps, as if the floor itself might disappear beneath him. The lights were blinding, the audience endless, and the judges felt impossibly far away. He was just a Filipino kid with a dream too big for his small hands to hold comfortably. His heart raced, not because he doubted his voice, but because he knew what this moment represented. It wasn't just his chance. It was his family's sacrifice. It was his country's pride. It was every night he sang quietly so neighbors wouldn't hear, every morning he practiced instead of playing. At home, his life was simple. A small room, worn-out school shoes, and a mirror where he practiced smiling through fear. His mother worked long hours, his father worked even farther away, across borders and time zones. They missed each other constantly, but music filled the gaps words couldn't. Every time the national anthem played, he stood straight, chest out, voice steady, because he was taught that even if you have little, dignity is everything. When the judge asked what song he would sing, his voice was soft but firm. Lupang Hinirang. A pause followed. Some people were curious. Some were unsure. A national anthem on a talent show felt risky. No tricks. No backup dancers. No safety net. Just truth. The first note came out quietly, almost fragile, like a secret being shared. The boy closed his eyes, and suddenly the stage disappeared. He was back in school assemblies, hand over heart. Back in his grandmother's living room, where she used to say, "Sing it like you mean it, because this song carries our history." His voice grew stronger, richer, filled with something deeper than skill, purpose. The audience leaned in. People who didn't understand the language felt their throats tighten anyway. Because pain, pride, and hope don't need translation. Every word he sang felt lived in, earned. When his voice trembled, it wasn't fear, it was emotion pushing through restraint. The camera moved to the judges. One blinked rapidly. Another stopped taking notes entirely. And then there was Simon, arms crossed at first, expression unreadable. But as the song reached its most powerful lines, his face changed. His jaw tightened. His eyes glassed over. He looked away, wiped his face, then looked back again, shaken. The final note rang out, clear and fearless. Silence followed. Not awkward silence, reverent silence. The kind where everyone knows something important just happened. Then the applause exploded. People stood without thinking. Cheers rose like a wave. Flags appeared from nowhere. Some cried openly. The boy froze, overwhelmed. For a second, he looked like a child again, small, unsure, searching the crowd. Then he smiled, and tears streamed down his face. Not tears of relief. Tears of release. When Simon stood up, the room went quiet again. His voice cracked as he spoke. He said he had heard thousands of voices, but very few that made him feel something this deeply. He said the performance wasn't about winning, it was about reminding people who they are and where they come from. And that was why it mattered. Backstage, the boy collapsed into his mother's arms. She cried harder than he did. Her phone buzzed non-stop, messages from home, from strangers, from people saying thank you. Then a call came through. His father. Watching from far away. Crying. Proud. Whole again, if only for a moment. That night, the performance spread across the world. Comments poured in from every corner of the globe. People said they remembered their own childhoods. Their own flags. Their own forgotten dreams. A child had done what politics and speeches never could. He united hearts through honesty. This wasn't just a song. It was proof that courage has no age, that pride has no language barrier, and that sometimes the smallest voices carry the loudest truths. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps these powerful moments reach further, because somewhere right now, another child is holding a dream close to their chest, waiting for the courage to sing, and when they do, the world should be listening. Before you look away, give this story just 1 minute, because what happened on that stage was never supposed to make history. It wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. It didn't beg for attention. And yet, it silenced an entire room and brought one of the toughest judges in the world to tears. If moments like this move you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because stories that touch the heart deserve to be shared. The boy stood under the lights feeling smaller than he had ever felt in his life. The stage was massive, the crowd endless, and the judges felt like figures from another world. His shoes were polished, his clothes simple, and his hands shook slightly as he held the microphone. He wasn't nervous because he didn't believe in himself, he was nervous because he knew what this moment meant. For his family. For his home. For a country watching quietly, hoping loudly. He grew up in a place where dreams were carried carefully, because nothing came easy. His mornings started early, his nights ended late, and in between were school, chores, and responsibilities far bigger than his age. His father worked overseas, chasing opportunity instead of comfort. His mother stayed strong at home, pretending she wasn't tired. And every time the house felt too quiet, the boy sang. Music became his language. When he missed his father, he sang. When money was tight, he sang. When hope felt fragile, he sang louder. His grandmother used to say that songs remember things people forget. She taught him the national anthem not as lyrics, but as a story of sacrifice, struggle, and pride. Sing it with respect, she told him, because it carries who we are. So when the judges asked what he would perform on the stage of America's Got Talent, he didn't choose something safe. He didn't choose something popular. He chose truth. Lupang Hinirang, he said, his voice calm but certain. The room shifted. Some smiled. Some doubted. A national anthem on a talent show felt risky, but the boy wasn't there to impress. He was there to honor. The first note was gentle, almost hesitant, like a whisper meant only for those willing to listen. He closed his eyes, and the noise of the world disappeared. He wasn't standing in front of judges anymore. He was standing in school assemblies. In town plazas. In quiet living rooms where families stood still, hands over hearts. His voice carried respect before it carried volume. As the song continued, something changed. His voice grew stronger, fuller, steady with purpose. Every lyric felt lived, not learned. People who didn't understand the words felt their chests tighten anyway. Because pride sounds the same in every language. Pain does too. And hope always finds its way through. The camera moved to the judges. Pens stopped moving. Smiles faded into silence. One judge leaned forward. Another pressed a hand to her chest. And then there was Simon, arms crossed at first, expression guarded. But as the boy reached the heart of the anthem, Simon's face softened. His eyes filled. He looked away, then back again, caught off guard by emotion he hadn't expected. The final note rang out clear, fearless, and honest. The silence afterward was sacred. No one rushed to clap. No one moved. And then the applause came, loud, rising, unstoppable. The audience stood. Cheers echoed. Flags waved. Tears fell freely. The boy stood frozen, overwhelmed by the sound. For a second, he looked lost. Then he smiled, and tears streamed down his face, not because he had one, but because he had been heard. When Simon stood up, the room quieted again. His voice was soft, unguarded. He spoke about feeling something real. About being reminded of home, identity, and why music matters. He said the performance wasn't about perfection, it was about truth. And that was why it mattered. Backstage, the boy collapsed into his mother's arms. She cried without trying to hide it. Messages poured in from home. Neighbors. Teachers. Strangers. And then a call came through, his father. Watching from far away. Crying. Proud. Connected again, if only through a screen. That night, the performance traveled across the world. People shared it with captions like, "I felt this. I remembered who I am. This healed something in me." A child had done what speeches never could, he united hearts through honesty. This wasn't just a performance. It was a reminder that courage doesn't need age, that pride doesn't need translation, and that even the smallest voice can carry a nation when it sings from the heart. If this story touched you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps moments like this reach further, because somewhere right now, another child is holding a dream close to their chest, waiting for the courage to sing, and when they do, the world should be listening. Before this video ends, you'll understand why a single child's voice stopped an entire arena and why even the harshest judge couldn't hold back tears. What you're about to hear is not just a performance, it's a reminder of who we are when we listen with our hearts. And if stories like this move you, take a second to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because sharing moments like this keeps them alive. The boy stood still at center stage, lights blazing so bright they felt warm against his skin. For a moment, he forgot how many people were watching. He focused on breathing, just like his mother taught him. In front of him sat judges who had seen everything: big voices, wild dreams, unforgettable acts. But he wasn't there to compete with them. He was there to carry something much heavier than nerves. He was there carrying home. His childhood had been shaped by patience. Waiting for his father's calls from overseas. Waiting for his mother to come home after long days of work. Waiting for moments when life felt less fragile. In between all that waiting, there was music. Music filled the empty spaces. Music turned loneliness into strength. Every time he sang, it felt like bringing his family into the same room again. He learned early that being Filipino meant standing proud, even when the world doesn't notice you. His grandmother used to stand beside him during morning ceremonies, reminding him that songs can hold history. She told him that the national anthem wasn't just something you sing, it's something you feel. It's a promise to remember where you come from, even when you travel far. So when the judge asked what he would sing on the stage of America's Got Talent, his answer came from instinct, not strategy. Lupang Hinirang. The room paused. Some people didn't know what to expect. A national anthem wasn't meant to impress, it was meant to honor. And that's exactly why he chose it. The first note left his lips quietly, almost shy, like he was asking permission to be heard. He closed his eyes, and suddenly the noise faded away. He wasn't in America anymore. He was back home, standing straight, hand over heart, singing with his classmates. His voice carried respect before it carried power. As the song continued, his confidence grew naturally, not forced. Each line sounded lived in, shaped by memories and meaning. People who didn't understand the language felt emotion tightening their chests anyway. Because sincerity doesn't need translation. Pride doesn't need explanation. It simply arrives and stays. The camera cut to the judges. Smiles softened into silence. Pens rested on tables, forgotten. One judge leaned forward, eyes glistening. Another inhaled deeply, as if holding back tears. And then there was Simon, known for being unshakable. At first, his expression was guarded. But slowly, almost unwillingly, his eyes filled. He blinked. Looked away. Then looked back again, visibly moved. When the boy reached the final line, his voice trembled, not from fear, but from emotion. He didn't stop. He pushed through, and that single moment of vulnerability made everything real. The final note echoed through the theater, lingering longer than sound should. Silence followed. Not awkward silence. Meaningful silence. The kind where everyone knows something important just happened. Then the applause erupted. People stood. Cheers filled the air. Flags waved. Tears fell openly. The boy stood frozen, overwhelmed, unsure where to look. Then he smiled. And in that smile was relief, pride, and disbelief all at once. Simon stood up slowly. When he spoke, his voice was softer than anyone expected. He didn't talk about technique or competition. He talked about feeling. About being reminded of home. About how music can cross borders faster than anything else. He thanked the boy not as a judge, but as a human being. Backstage, the boy collapsed into his mother's arms. She cried the way people cry when years of sacrifice finally feel worth it. His phone buzzed endlessly with messages from home. And then a call came through, his father. Watching from far away. Crying. Proud beyond words. That night, the performance spread across the world. People shared it with captions saying they felt seen, healed, remembered. A child had done what arguments and speeches never could. He connected hearts through honesty. This wasn't about winning a show. It was about reminding the world that courage doesn't need age, that pride doesn't need permission, and that sometimes the smallest voices carry the loudest truths. If this story touched you even a little, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps these moments reach further because somewhere right now, another child is holding a dream close to their heart, waiting for the courage to sing, and when they do, the world should be listening. Before you scroll past, pause for a moment, because what you're about to see is not just a child singing. It's a voice carrying the weight of family, of dreams, of a nation, and it's about to move one of the toughest judges in the world to tears. If stories like this inspire you, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because moments like these deserve to reach everyone. The boy walked onto the stage slowly, taking in the bright lights and the enormous audience, his small hands clutching the microphone as if it were a lifeline. His heart pounded, not from fear, but because he knew this moment carried everything he loved. His mother had kissed his forehead before he left, whispering words of courage. His father, far away working overseas, had called him that morning, his voice trembling with pride. And his grandmother, the first person to recognize his talent, had reminded him to sing with his heart, not just his voice. He grew up in a life where patience and perseverance were taught early. Mornings were spent in school, afternoons in chores, nights in study, and all the in-between moments filled with music. Singing became his escape, his connection to family, his way of keeping hope alive when life felt heavy. And he had practiced one song above all others, not because it would win applause, but because it carried history, pride, and love, Lupang Hinirang, the Philippine national anthem. When the host asked what he would sing, the boy's voice was quiet but steady. Lupang Hinirang, he said. A hush fell over the audience. Some didn't understand why he would choose a national anthem for a talent show. But this wasn't about entertainment or trends. It was about meaning, courage, and heart. And the boy knew that what he carried was bigger than applause, it was love, respect, and identity. The music began softly, and the boy's voice followed, gentle at first, like a small flame in the darkness. He closed his eyes, and the world disappeared. He was back in his small hometown, standing in school assemblies, hand over heart, singing with classmates. He was back in his grandmother's living room, learning every note with care. Every word came from memory and emotion, not rehearsal, and it resonated with a kind of purity the audience could feel even if they didn't understand the language. As the song continued, his voice grew in strength, rich and resonant. Every line carried pride, every note carried emotion, every pause carried intention. People leaned forward, captivated. The judges stopped taking notes, their expressions softening. Simon Cowell, known for his unshakable demeanor, stared in silence, eyes widening, lips pressed together. Somewhere deep inside, he felt the weight of what he was witnessing. A child, standing alone, had captured more than attention, he had captured hearts. When the boy reached the final, soaring lines, his voice trembled slightly, not from weakness, but from emotion. It was human, raw, beautiful. The final note lingered, echoing in the theater like a heartbeat. Silence followed, thick and reverent, before the audience erupted into thunderous applause. People rose to their feet. Cheers and tears mixed together. The boy froze for a moment, overwhelmed, and then a small, shy smile spread across his face. Relief, pride, and disbelief all collided in that single expression. Simon stood slowly, visibly moved, tears shining in his eyes. He spoke softly, the words unpolished but heartfelt. He didn't talk about technique. He didn't talk about the competition. He talked about courage, authenticity, and the power of music to remind us of home. He thanked the boy not as a judge, but as a human being who had been reminded of what really matters. Backstage, the boy hugged his mother tightly, shaking. Messages from family, friends, and viewers from around the world poured in. And then a call came through, his father, watching from thousands of miles away. Tears, pride, and love flowed through the phone, bridging distance, bringing them together in that moment. He had done more than perform, he had united his family, his country, and the audience in a single song. That night, the clip went viral. Comments poured in, people said they remembered their childhood dreams, their families, their roots. Others said they felt hope and pride in ways words could never describe. A child had reminded the world that bravery doesn't need age, that love doesn't need words, and that even the smallest voice can carry the loudest message. This wasn't just a performance. It was a lesson. Courage can be quiet, but it can shake the world. Pride can be simple, but it can touch hearts everywhere. And a voice, no matter how small, can remind millions of what it means to be human. If this story moved you, even a little, like this video and subscribe to the channel. Sharing it helps moments like this reach further, because somewhere right now, another child is holding a dream close, waiting for the courage to sing, and when they do, the world should be listening.